This is Patrick Ritty. I'm going to talk a little bit about After Effects and something that I think all students should know, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think is often taken a look at very often. And it's something that shows up a lot in student work that makes things look robotic. And I'll show you what this is in just a moment. So, really, what's happening is that I'm going to talk about um, the graph editor. And what this does is it allows you to take fine control over motion and how it changes direction um, across keyframes. And why is this important? Um, Mainly because of the fact that um, if we just set keyframes from one set position to another set position, usually what happens is that our motion seems very robotic. It doesn't flow. And according to um, the principles of animation, there's something called ease in and ease out. And because nothing except robots move like robots. So what we're going to do today is that I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to the graph editor with a couple simple motions. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create two shape layers, and actually these could be any objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a shape layer, and I did a shape that was, I did a layer that a composition that was 20 seconds, and I'm going to do two just 10-second motions with different shapes, just to show you how to use something called Easy Ease. So, and I've also put a tutorial on how to use the different eases in After Effects in your work. So, what this is all about, and let me make this other shape layer, and you can see that it's here, and I'm going to move its duration out to just after the first one, and then let's move the slider across and make it not an ellipse, but maybe a star. Okay, make it kind of nice there. Okay, so what's happening here is that when we, and I'm going to close the contents because this isn't really a tutorial about shape layers. It's about objects. So we're going to do transform like we usually do. And I'm going to use position. And actually, something that's really sort of interesting here is that I might even do scale, because this whole thing with the graph editor is about any keyframe. Doesn't matter whether it's position or scale or whatnot. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to then take this and do a position. And in general, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a couple of sets of keyframes with and without the easy ease, you know. The other thing that we have to do, and actually I should just pull this keyframe over here. what we need to do here is that we need to include any of our keyframe properties in the graph editor. And this is the whole idea of this entire tutorial. The graph editor allows us to, instead of using these numerical values and keyframes, watch what happens. This may freak you out a little bit, but all I'm saying is that nothing's moved here yet. This is the, let's see here, shape layer 2 position X, shape layer 2 position Y, and scale X. So what's going to happen here is that we are going to change these over time, but what I'm going to do is I am going to close the graph editor, and what we're going to do is that we're going to change some keyframes. So right now, I'm just going to click to the current keyframe, and that'll be fine. And my computer is about to die, so I'm going to just plug in the power so we can keep doing this tutorial. Sorry for the little delay. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to move this ball in a kind of a bouncing fashion over 10 seconds. And you've seen this. This is kind of, what you've, done in other classes. And what I'm going to do is that I'm really not going to worry about the timing much. And actually, this is something you haven't seen much. You can actually move your you can actually shape your paths like Illustrator curves, which is really incredibly powerful. But this is also something we don't talk about very much. You can just grab the Bezier curve and away you go. You can see I just set a keyframe. And let's see here. I'm not going to worry about this too much. But I'm just going to go and just kind of turn this into just kind of a little bouncing thing. Every second. And oh, you know what? Let's go back 2 keyframes and fix this. I just want to make sure that my point here is like the others. And as I'm doing, I'm just going here to the next keyframe, next keyframe, next keyframe. And all I'm really going to do is I'm just going to just every second just make this go up, down, all these things. And actually, this is just kind of going up and down. And then what's going to be interesting about this is that, okay, you're going to see this, and it's going to go really regular in its movement. And let's just leave it at that. So let's just take a look here and see how it moves. Wow, okay. See how it just, it makes those little curves, but it's still just moving in a very linear fashion, which is just really no good. Oh, and I know what I'll do is that I will also do a back and forth motion with the star, and for the other 5 seconds, I'll just do a zoom. So I'll show you what happens with that. Actually, I'll just take that 15 seconds. Okay, anyway, let's just go back here to the sphere and see why this is sort of important. So let's look into the graph editor. Keep in mind that we're looking at the keyframes down here. Look at this. This is really interesting. Is that, okay, the motion on, I'm not worried so much about this. This is kind of like the X position. It's a little funky, and it really should be kind of a straight line, but I'm not going to worry about that so much. What I'm much more worried about here is that I'm worried about these things here. And this is, what this means is that this is suddenly moving at a rate that's just linear, just going. It isn't smooth in its motion. So I want you to go back to looking at Thomas and Johnson's ease in, ease out on the principles of animation. And basically what our goal here is to smooth out these peaks into something that's much more smooth. And what's going to do is that this is going to ease our motion in and ease our motion out. And this can be done with zooms, this can be done with motion, this can be done with anything. But the great thing about this is what this does is that this makes motion much more organic. And this is really a cool thing. So let's just select some of these. Look at this. There's a whole bunch of stuff that kind of just opened up here. And I'm going to select these, because we're going to do this all at the same time. Okay. So let's take a look down here and look at these things called easy ease in, easy ease out, ease in, ease out. And see, the thing is that I can also take these keyframes and I can make them curves. But really what my goal is here is to make these things, if we got into math, I'd call these things, logarithmic curves, which means that everything would be going slowly starting up, almost like gravity, slowly starting up and then slowly starting down, slowly starting up, slowly starting down. So all we need to do is we just need to take these sharp edges. It looks like all these other things here on the just on the x-axis are being selected, but they're really not. So don't worry about it. They're just in the way. So watch what happens here is that, okay, I'm even going to hit it a couple times. So notice now, it's a nice kind of like sine wave. That's kind of cool. So let's turn off the graph editor and see these are all kind of, the keyframe have changed a little bit. But let's look at what happened. Well, that actually didn't do what we wanted to do. Because actually, believe it or not, down here we don't want this thing to be easing. So really, actually this is a really good application for doing this and showing a natural movement. So all we want to do is we want to only do the tops of this, because when it hits the ground, it's actually a sharp movement. So we did easy ease only up here as far as its rate of motion during time. So actually, you can see how it's actually sort of bouncing here in time. That's actually pretty cool. So let's turn off the graph editor and just go over here and see what this looks like. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Okay. So let's go over and just take a look at the star for a moment. And really, I'm going to do two things. Let's collapse the circle. Let's just go to the star, go to the transform, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to zoom it in, and I'm going to zoom it out. And the thing is that all we need to do is just take that center node in the graph editor and then do ease on it, just to ease it through the zoom in and zoom out, and it'll look a lot better. So, and the other thing I'm also going to do is I'm also going to bring in our background to do an easy ease on a zoom shot. Do that in a moment. But first of all, let me just, here with the star, select that, hit a scale, and I'll just hit another keyframe. Normally what I would do is I'd hit a keyframe at the beginning and the end, but I'll just come back here and I'll just move this out. That'll be fine. Okay. So, what does this look like in the graph editor? Actually, what does this move like? Actually, you know what? Let's do a couple things. Let's actually make this pulse in and out a couple times. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm just compressing the time a little bit. I'm just going to move my cursor out so that I can just move my keyframes into position, get my timing right. And I just wanted to do this a couple times because I want to be able to show you a couple times and how this works moving in and out. So let's see here. Let's just see how this looks. This will just kind of look like a heartbeat sort of thing. But notice how it has this real kind of mechanical sort of motion. Actually, I'm gonna do this even a little bit more. I might even make this really pulsing pretty fast. Okay, let's see how this works. All right, let's just see how this looks. Yeah, that's pretty good. But notice how it's just pulsing in a very robotic sort of way. Let's take a look at this in the graph editor. And you know what? Yeah, that's no good, right? So let's see. What we want is actually when it gets bigger, we want that to smooth out. We want it to kind of look like it's bouncing. And this is almost sort of like it's bouncing in the z-axis. And you know what? It's the same thing. So you grab these, do an easy ease on them, and notice all of a sudden they're Bezier curves. And I hope you go back this as much as you want. But see? That's a lot better, isn't it? Okay. Let's turn off the graph editor and collapse this shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import a file. Guess what we're going to import? We're going to import that we are going to import let's see here. Always say parallax. And I'm hoping to bring in the background from the helps project. And here we go, parallax animation. No, that's not what I'm looking for at all. Maybe I can just go out and get a big background. So let me just go grab something really, really fast. Let's be really literal. It's an animation background. Sorry, I'm just going to go and grab this really quick. Because I don't want to waste your time. So let me bring this out here. And what we're going to do is that we're going to just take and make a see, I'll just save this image. We're just going to do your basic zoom. And I'm just going to make this for a special folder. I'll just put in game. And let's import it. I'll just hop out here again real quick and bring this in. And, yep, I'll bring this in. And let's put it into our composition. And we won't really care too much about where it is in the timeline. We'll probably need to scale it up a little bit. It's probably pretty small. Okay. Yep, it's just a tiny bit small. So I'll just bring it out here. The resolution isn't going to be so great, but I'm not going to worry about that so much. We're just going to worry about going in and zooming in on this windmill here. So we did the star, and I'm just going to zoom in on the windmill. Let's open up transform and just do what we usually do. By the way, I know this windmill is going to be really blurry, okay? Two ways we can do this is that we can do this, with the 3D camera like I showed you before, or we can just use it with scale. And I'm going to turn on scale. Got a keyframe here. And this is going to be a couple seconds, and actually I'm also going to move my render space back to about 18 seconds, which is as much as I need with this. So, this will render. I'll come up and I'm going to make another scale keyframe for this. Actually, what I'll wind up doing is that, let me go back here and set a position keyframe for this as well, because we're going to have position to go to that windmill up top. And we'll just put both of these in the key editor, in the keyframe, I mean the graph editor. And let's just make the second keyframe for this. Let's zoom in. And let's move the X and Y. I'll do the Y first. And then move the X. Just so this stuff is in the middle. And I think I want to scale it just a bit more. Which means we have to move this in and out a bit more. And right. So let's take a look at how this is without Easy Ease. This is probably going to look really mechanical as well. So here we go. And of course, this is taking a lot of processor power, so this isn't running in real time. Okay. Let's take a look at all this stuff in the graph editor. So I turn these on. Let's just take a look. Well, these don't look too bad, but the thing is, they're not smooth. And that's kind of a problem. So what we need to do is we need to select keyframe nodes here on, let's see here, I'm also going to take a look at so what is this? It says that's position, that's position. Okay, and I'm also going to look at scale on both of these, on all three of these. So I'm going to select the keyframes on all of these, and I'm going to easy ease these. That's kind of cool, but actually I'm going to make the easing a lot more pronounced. I think that's going to be all right. I do have kind of a problem with the idea that I have some black background and I would take marks on myself for this one. So, but let's turn the graph editor off and take a look at how this is now. Notice how, actually, let's go back and take a look at all of this. Notice how all of this, that when it looked really robotic before, it isn't perfect, okay? But it's a lot better than it was. This is much better, actually. And then notice how that zoom just kind of went in a very organic sort of way. So this is how you use the ease tools in the graph editor to basically not have your stuff look so robotic, which honestly, I see so many senior projects with this robotic movement, and even in walk cycles, it drives me crazy. So I hope that you got something from this. I'm going to have a couple more tutorials up online. All of these, I hope these will be a minor revolution in your animation skills in After Effects. And I appreciate you listening. I'm also going to package this up and put this out on